Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a truly captivating piece of source material that tackles some of the absolute most mysterious phenomena in the natural world. I mean, for centuries, right across various cultures, people have reported seeing trees that literally appear to cry, or ancient stone monuments that suddenly begin to sweat, or even bleed. Traditionally, these have been viewed as supernatural omens, miracles, or, signs of impending doom. But today, we're going to look at the fascinating physical mechanics behind these events, exactly as detailed in our source material. We're essentially taking the magic out of the mystery and replacing it with something even more brilliant, the hidden mechanics of nature.
Okay, let's dive right into this. If we just strip away the myth and the folklore for a second, we're left with a very basic but incredibly compelling question. Why on earth do stones sweat and trees cry? To the average person just walking by, witnessing a dry rock suddenly glisten with moisture, it seems impossible. It feels entirely spontaneous. But our source material frames this not as some spontaneous magical occurrence, but as a deeply logical puzzle. It's an environmental reaction, and today we are going to solve that puzzle together.
Now, to really understand this, we have to start with a core philosophy presented in the source. Quote, "In great nature, there are absolutely no changes or movements without a prior sign." This is the foundational rule for everything we're going to talk about today. Nature doesn't just spring massive weather events or environmental shifts on us out of nowhere. What we perceive as sudden, spontaneous mysteries like a weeping tree are actually perfectly predictable physical precursors to a shift in the environment. Basically, they're nature's early warning system.
All right, moving into section 1, the mechanics, pressure and moisture.
So how exactly does this early warning system actually work? Let's move from the mystical right into the mechanical and break down the physics of what is happening inside these objects right before a major weather shift. Well, it all starts with the composition of the objects themselves. The source makes this really fascinating distinction between a living stone and a dead stone. See, a living stone might look completely solid and dry on the outside, but it maintains its dense structure specifically because it contains internal humidity and moisture. That internal moisture acts almost like a glue. On the flip side, a dead stone is one that has lost all of its internal moisture, and because of that, it just becomes completely corroded and literally crumbles away into dust. So the stones we see sweating out in the wild, those are very much these living stones, holding on to trapped moisture deep inside.
Now, what actually forces that moisture out? This brings us to atmospheric pressure, specifically hectopascal drops. Right before a major storm or a significant shift in the weather, the atmospheric pressure in the environment takes a dive. And while we might just think of this as some random number on a weather app, this drop in pressure actually creates an immense invisible physical weight. Imagine an invisible hand suddenly grabbing and squeezing the environment. This atmospheric weight presses down on the living stones, and because the stone isn't quite as rigidly solid as we might assume, the pressure literally squeezes that internal moisture right out to the surface. The stone is quite literally breaking a sweat under the pressure of the changing atmosphere.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the most famously terrifying anomalies out there, the bleeding stone. You've probably heard historical myths of stones weeping red blood right before a tragedy strikes. But look at how the source demystifies this. Stones aren't just empty containers, right? They're packed with diverse natural materials and minerals, like iron. So when that atmospheric pressure squeezes the internal moisture outward, the water mixes with these internal minerals along the way. By the time it actually hits the surface, it's taken on a red, rust-like color. So it's not a spooky omen at all. It's just a simple, deeply elegant chemical reaction happening under intense atmospheric pressure.
Next up, section 2, the environment, energy paths.
Now, you might be asking yourself, wait, if this is just about atmospheric pressure, why doesn't every single rock on my driveway sweat before a thunderstorm? That is a great question. And the answer is that the physical location of these stones is just as important as what they're actually made of. According to the source material, nature isn't just this chaotic random open space. It actually has a specific geography made up of invisible lines, channels, and choke points. Think of them like invisible highways where environmental energy, pressure changes, and wind always travel first before a storm fully hits. A stone doesn't just sweat anywhere. The specific trees that cry, or the stones that sweat, do so because they just so happen to be sitting directly on one of nature's initial choke points. They are literally the first objects to get hit by the incoming atmospheric pressure.
The source actually shares this great, kind of funny mini-story that perfectly illustrates this exact point. We can call it the greedy mistake. It goes like this. A person is walking through the woods and sees a stone sweating. It's sitting right on one of these natural energy paths, feeling the pressure.
The person gets greedy and thinks, wow, no way, this is a magical, mystical object. I'm taking this home to my yard. So they drag this incredibly heavy rock all the way home. And what happens? The stone immediately stops sweating. Why? Because the magic wasn't in the rock itself. It was in the location. By moving it to their backyard, they took it off that natural choke point. It's no longer in the path of that initial pressure wave, so it just becomes a regular, boring, dry rock.
Let's move to Section 3, the human connection, nature's ultimate sensor.
So we've talked plenty about rocks and trees, but the source makes a pretty dramatic pivot here, bringing the focus directly onto you and me. The source presents this absolutely fascinating premise, quoting directly, "There is absolutely no sensor created by humanity that is as accurate as the human flesh." I mean, think about that. We build these incredible supercomputers, advanced weather radar, incredibly sophisticated barometers, yet the source argues that the human body, our very flesh and cells, is inherently designed to perfectly read and react to the changing frequencies and pressures of the natural world. We are biologically wired into this system.
We look at a sweating stone with such awe, thinking it's highly sensitive to its environment. But the twist here is that a stone is actually in an early, unrefined stage of evolution compared to us. It reacts much slower to environmental shifts. The human body, on the other hand, it is so highly evolved that it reacts to atmospheric pressure drops almost instantly. We feel the invisible weight of the changing weather long before a rock ever starts to squeeze out a single drop of water.
And if you want proof of this, the source offers a brilliantly relatable example. Have you ever wondered why an old scar or maybe a knee surgery from a decade ago suddenly starts throbbing right before a thunderstorm? Here are the actual mechanics behind it. When that hectopascal pressure drop hits, it acts as a physical weight pressing down on your entire body. Now, your healthy human cells are strong and elastic. They easily withstand this invisible squeezing. But scarred tissue? It never heals to 100% perfection. Those damaged cells are weaker, so when the sudden atmospheric weight presses down on you, the damaged cells simply cannot endure the pressure the way your healthy cells can, and they send pain signals straight to your brain. Your aching knee is doing the exact same thing as a sweating stone. It's reacting to the physical weight of the weather. You are, quite literally, a living barometer.
The source even takes this concept further into traditional philosophy, noting that this biological sensor extends way beyond just predicting rain. The argument here is that if a person is properly tuned to nature's frequencies, this incredible internal sensor can even pick up on distant accidents or events before they arrive. Whether you view that through a lens of physical vibrations or maybe a more spiritual, energetic awareness, the source's underlying point remains the same. The human body is an unimaginably sophisticated receiver of environmental data.
And finally, Section 4, the societal critique. Why is this still a mystery?
This brings us to a massive elephant in the room. If the mechanics of sweating stones, aching scars, and pressure drops are really this clear and physical, we kind of have to ask the obvious question, right? If the mechanics are this clear, why hasn't science explained this to the public? Why do we still treat crying trees and sweating statues as these unsolvable supernatural mysteries on the evening news? Why aren't scientists just coming out and explaining the hectopascal pressure drops and mineral reactions to everyday people? Well, the source material offers a very blunt and, frankly, very practical answer to that.
So, the crucial point the source makes here is funding. It simply comes down to the reality of scientific funding. Scientists, just like anyone else in society, require financial incentives to conduct deep, rigorous research. The source points out that while some Western scientists might have the vast resources to chase down these specific environmental anomalies, local scientists often just ignore them simply because there is zero grant money in figuring out why a specific rock in a forest is damp. I mean, no one is paying them to solve it. And because the scientific community largely ignores it due to a lack of financial incentive, the public is left completely in the dark. Without a clear scientific explanation provided to them, society naturally fills in the blanks, dismissing these brilliant physical reactions as religious miracles, spooky omens, or just random chaotic happenings.
Which leaves us with this final lingering thought to reflect on today. How much of nature's brilliant, intricate design do we casually dismiss as magic simply because it doesn't pay to study it? From the moisture hidden deep within ancient stones, to the invisible pathways of the wind, to the unbelievable sensitivity of your own cells reacting to the atmosphere, nature is constantly communicating. It's not magic, it's mechanics. So the next time it storms, pay close attention to what the natural world and your own body is trying to tell you.